Hey guys, it's Ashley and I'm back from behind the chair. Today I wanted to share with you a bald fade tutorial. So if you're interested, please don't forget to like and subscribe, check out my other videos, and stay for the before and after. I hope you enjoy it. Alright, so for this bald fade, I'm going to start by taking off some of this hair where I'm going to, blend in with my shears later on. So we really don't need all of this right here. So we're going to remove this bulk, and then I'm going to go all the way around the head, but I'm not going to worry about the bottom part. Sometimes barbers get a little caught up and take too much time. I'm not going there. I'm going to cut it all off. I'm giving myself enough room that I can go back in with a 1.5 and kind of blend up to that too. So don't forget to do that. There's no need to take off the back of his head with my clippers right now because I'm going to cut all of that off later on with a 0. So I am just making sure this too can kind of fade right into the top when I come back later. And now look, I'm going right into my 0. And I'm going to just take all of this off. We're doing a mid-bald fade, so I'm going to stay a little bit lower so I can give myself some room to fade and don't bring it too high. So as you can see, I'm just kind of tapping up into my line when I get there. And I'm removing that bulk right off with my 0. So you want to make sure you always go back and just double check everywhere that you got it all down to the exact same length when you're going in, like with your 0 or anything like that. I'm going to kind of rub it on him a few times so that I can really make sure I'm getting all of the hair in the area. So now I'm keeping this line a little bit lower. It's hard to tell because his head's slightly tilted down, but it is a slight drop. Now I'm dropping this so that his head shape isn't gonna look like it just goes all the way up and he has this extremely long neck. So we want to leave him some room from the top and that 0 all the way at the bottom. So I want to give more of a gradual fade into that cowlick, and I don't want to take a lot of length off of it. So I'm not going to bring that 0 too high. Now I'm just doing the exact same thing on the other side. And I am looking in my mirror to make sure that my lines are matching. And I do stand behind the client and double check. So now I'm going to open up my clippers all the way and just go right above, about a finger length above where my clippers were closed at. So right here I can kind of dig in and then start to slightly lift out whenever I'm getting back to where I want my line with the half on my clipper. So just bringing that all the way to the other side of the head. I'm not going to fade one side at a time. I'm going to go all the way around, and right now I'm just going to kind of clean off all that hair. He had a lot of hair coming off, and you don't want to leave your client messy or dirty. I do disinfect my brush after every client. Alright, you don't want to miss this. So before I go in with any other guards, I want to come back in between my 0 and my clippers all the way open to a half, because I want to make sure that I'm blending out this line before I get any further in this haircut so that I don't have to come back to it. I don't want to really over fade, so I don't want to have to keep coming back into my haircut where I've already gone. So I'm going to go in and just kind of remove any light line I still see in his haircut. And so now I'm going in with my clippers back opened all the way and just tapping right back into that line I've already created. You can see I'm really not raising it anymore. I'm just kind of cleaning it up. And so now I have my half guard, and I'm gonna open it halfway because I don't want to cut too much what I've already faded. And I'm just gonna run it smaller than I did before between my 0 and my half. I'm really trying to just tap into that hair with my half guard opened a little so that I can create a smooth transition. So you definitely don't want to keep bringing your guards up a finger length exactly every time, because you're gonna
bring your fade up too high. So now I'm going to open it all the way and just make my way around his head, just so that I can double check. And so I'm just lightly tapping that half opened all the way into that hair. And now I'm going in with my 1, and I don't want to take off too much of what I've already faded, so I'm going to stay low with that 1, because sometimes your 1 can cut into your half guard if your clippers are really low. So whenever I get to this side, I like to open up my clippers and go back around to the other side. That way I'm not wasting any time, and I've always know where I am before I'm going to the next step. So I opened up my 1, and I'm working myself all the way back to where I started with my 1 closed. And as you can see, that's starting to fade really nicely. So now I'm going to grab my 1.5 closed and start to just tap into my number 2. And you can see in the back of his head how creating that shadow with that drop in the fade just a little bit doesn't make it look like his neck continues really high. So now I'm coming back around with my 1.5 guard opened. So I'm just going lightly into the number 2, and I'm going to grab my number 2. Don't be scared if you start to hit where you kind of positioned your 2 at, because I'm going to turn these clippers slightly sideways and start to create a blended fade now that I've removed all of that bulk. I've got my fade on the sides. So now I can kind of hit this at an angle and create my fade. So when I go and blend, it's a lot easier for me. And so right here, you can kind of just pivot on the back of his head, because that curve kind of starts to like square out. So you can kind of square their heads on the curvature before their heads start to really dip back into the crown. And if you just watch, you'll see that I'm not really digging. I'm keeping my clippers flat on the head and just riding it up. So now that I'm satisfied with his fade, I am going to dust him off, make sure there's no lines, and I'm going to start my lineup. Now, lineups are super important, and you can see right here, his lineup is a little bit longer than you would normally see, so it's going to take me a little bit more effort to really etch this out into a C shape without really digging into his hairline too much, because when I follow his hairline, it gives him a really triangle point instead of a soft C shape. So I'm just going to slowly work it with the corner of my trimmers until I get the shape that I'm looking for. So this is a little tedious, but it's definitely worth it for the client. So you can see it's starting to kind of round out as I use the corners of my teeth, and that's much better than what it's naturally kind of positioned to be like. So now I'm just going to take my trimmers and flip them the other way, and I'm going to kind of tap into the 0 I've already put there, because that's a double 0 that I'm using right now going into my 0. So it's really easy to just kind of fade it right into that without leaving any harsh lines on the client and giving a really seamless blend to the bottom. And so I'm just doing the same thing on the other side. And before I wet the top of my client's hair, I'm just going to clean off any of those little neck hairs so that they're not sticking all over him when I wet the top. I also don't like the wet hair stuck on my fingers, so I make sure to clean everyone off before using my water. So now I'm gonna lightly apply some oil, or you can apply lotion or something that's gonna give your hair, for your client, more moisture, so that when you spray them down with water, it's retaining the water and not just kind of dripping off of them like a duck. Sometimes that can happen and you're just spraying all your water on them and it's not going anywhere. So I'm gonna put a moisturizer barrier that's gonna hold water in the hair for me. And I'm also lifting so that I don't have to apply so much water. I can get just directly to the root of the hair and work it down. So you see me just working that hair around the head with the water in it so that it's not so much water on my client. So I'm gonna trim his bangs. They're a little bit longer than usual. I start on one side and then I kind of slightly tilt over, but I do like to double check the other side when I'm on the other side, because sometimes it can come out a little uneven if you just trim bangs from one side. But this client does brush all of his hair to the opposite side. And so I'm gonna give myself a mohawk guide. So here I am matching the shortest point, which is the bangs that I just cut on my client. And I am cutting all of the top at a slight angle to compensate for the dip in the crown of the bangs and to compensate for the cowlick in the back of his head. So there's a few main reasons why you slightly give an arch to your scissor cut on the top of the head. And back here, I'm just blending that cowlick in to my number 2 and kind of using that middle guide to continue to blend in the back of the head. So I started blending on my client's left side first before cutting the top, which is okay. I've created a guide at the top so I know the length I need to match. And so now I want to create my sides and fade them exactly how I'd like them. So you can see I'm kind of cross-checking that haircut I just did. And then I'm gonna move on to this side. So I'm cutting at an angle. So I'm pulling out this comb. My shortest point is my number 2, and I am blending it up towards the top of the head. So I really don't want to cut into the head. I don't want to put my comb tilted on the crown of the head because it will rock your comb. So I keep it sideways and I'm meeting that number 2 and just taking off any corners that are hanging out from there. So you can see here a little bit better, I am going to go in at this angle, which was the same angle I had my number 2 on. I am just slightly meeting the length of the top hair to the length of the number 2 and taking out my corner. And this is just so I don't have to work so hard with my fingers whenever I am blending the top in to the sides. So I'm gonna come back to this middle guide. I'm gonna cut the left side, all of it to the exact middle guide. So you can see that long hair sticking out from that guide I've already created. And so I'm just cutting all of that on the left side only. So now once the left side is finished, I'm gonna come to the right side and match it all to my middle guide. So now that I've got my left and my right side cut and the middle, I can now blend in my previously cut sides to my top. Now you can see that corner I'm pulling out and cutting. And so to cross check, I'm just gonna put my comb parallel to the head and clean up any corners that pop out whenever I'm cross checking. And this is just to clean up his cowlick a little bit more. So I'm just doing the same thing in the back, double checking myself, making sure that all the hair is even. And then I'm just going to lightly take some weight off of the side he pushes all of his hair over to. Sometimes it can be a little bit heavier since all of that hair on top is going to be pushed over. And I get to check that corner I left on the side. So this corner was a little tricky. He has some little cowlicks that come right out of his hairline, as you can see on this side. So I was just kind of blending that in a little bit better for him and picking up that corner with my fingers and taking it out so that it blends really nice. So I'm just going back and cross-checking all of it. I'm going to go ahead and wash his hair, and then we will come back and style it. Alright, so I'm going to towel dry him, and then I am going to blow dry his hair. So when you're blow drying, you want to make sure that you're pushing that cowlick in the direction that it actually grows. You don't want to over push it. The way it doesn't grow, it'll stick out. And then you want to just style their hair kind of how they like to wear it. You're giving it like a rough style. And so then I'm going to use a wax. I've really been enjoying the wax in my blonder clients. So here is my before and after. Look at how much confidence he gained.
Alright, well if you enjoyed that video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and make sure you check out all of my other videos that I've made so far. I hope to continue to make some videos for you. So please stay tuned. I appreciate all the support, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.